The fighting in 1775 forced American colonists to take sides. Many Loyalists disagreed with British laws, but they hoped to settle the conflict peacefully and remain part of Great Britain. Patriots, however, felt the colonies should govern themselves. It was time to become a separate country, they argued. The Second Continental Congress. In May 1775, representatives from each of the colonies met in Philadelphia, just as they had met for the First Continental Congress the year before. The Second Continental Congress had many decisions to make. It chose John Hancock from Massachusetts to be president of the Continental Congress. One of the Congress's first acts was to create the Continental Army. This was an army of paid soldiers from the colonies. George Washington, a wealthy planter from Virginia, was chosen to lead the army. Washington had fought in the French and Indian War and was a skillful soldier. Although they planned for war, many representatives in Congress still wanted peace with Great Britain. To further this goal, Congress sent an official message directly to King George III. It was called the Olive Branch Petition. A petition is a written request for rights or benefits. An olive branch is a symbol of peace. The petition said that the colonists wanted the king to help settle their conflict with Parliament. They asked for more freedom to govern themselves. King George refused even to read the petition. 1. Look at the map of the 13 colonies. Identify and circle the colony Patrick Henry came from, the colony John Hancock came from, and the city where the Second Continental Congress met. Write why you think the representatives met in that city. Common sense. Congress debated what to do next. To a Pennsylvanian named Thomas Paine, the choice was clear. In January 1776, Paine wrote a pamphlet called Common Sense. He used language that was easy for people to understand. He gave reasons why it was time to part with Great Britain. Paine's pamphlet convinced many colonists that it was time for independence, which means freedom from rule by others. A government of our own. Members of the Second Continental Congress also read Common Sense. By the spring of 1776, many of them agreed that it was time to declare independence from Great Britain. In June, Richard Henry Lee, a representative from Virginia, asked Congress to vote on independence. Before holding the vote, Congress wanted to have a written document declaring independence and explaining why it was necessary. Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, Benjamin Franklin, Roger Sherman, and Robert Livingston were chosen as the committee or group to create the document. Jefferson was only 33 years old, but people knew he was intelligent, educated, and a good writer. Because of these qualities, the committee asked him to do the actual writing. "You can write 10 times better than I can," Adams told Jefferson. "Well, if you are decided, I will do as well as I can," Jefferson replied. Jefferson spent time crafting the document on his own. He then shared his draft with Adams and Franklin. They helped Jefferson, making comments and suggesting changes. 2 weeks later, Thomas Jefferson presented the rewritten document to Congress. Congress then made its own changes, including removing a strongly worded attack on slavery. Once these and other changes were made, Congress had its finished document. It was called the Declaration of Independence. The Declaration of Independence. Jefferson began by explaining why the colonies should become independent. He spoke about people's rights or freedoms that cannot be taken away. Many of his ideas were inspired by John Locke, an Englishman. Locke believed that governments are created in order to protect people's rights. Jefferson wrote, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." 3. Identify and write 3 rights that Jefferson says that people are born with. Jefferson then said that if a government tries to take away these rights, people should be able to create a new government. He wrote, "Whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute, put in place, new government." 4. Identify and write what Jefferson said people have a right to do when their government stops protecting their rights. Jefferson's list of grievances, or complaints, recorded ways that King George III had tried to take away the colonists' rights. These included, he has refused to assent, agree to laws, the most wholesome and necessary for the public good. He has kept among us, in times of peace, standing armies, without the consent of our legislatures, for imposing taxes on us without our consent. He has plundered, robbed our seas, ravaged our coasts, burned our towns, and destroyed the lives of our people. 5. Choose one of these accusations against the king and describe an event that fits this example. The last part of the Declaration said that because Great Britain had tried to take away their rights, the colonies had the right to become a separate country, to be called the United States of America. These are the words Jefferson used. "We, therefore, the representatives of the United States of America, declare that these united colonies are, and of right ought to be, free and independent states, and they have full power to levy, begin war, conclude peace, contract alliances, partnerships, establish commerce, trade, and do all other acts and things which independent states may of right do." 6. Describe the powers that the new nation has, according to the Declaration. A brave step. Congress voted to approve the Declaration of Independence on July 4, 1776. People throughout the colonies celebrated the event by cheering, ringing bells, and even tearing down statues of King George III. The celebration of Independence Day, also called the 4th of July, continues today with fireworks, parades, and other festivities. The members of Congress signed it in August. The signers knew that what they were doing could cause them grave personal hardship. They could be accused of treason, which is the crime of fighting against one's own country. If they were found guilty, they could be hanged. The fate or future of the new country now depended on the Americans who would sacrifice to win the war for independence. In 1776, the phrase, "all men are created equal," did not apply to everyone in society. The rights of women, African Americans, and American Indians were not recognized, as they are today. But the Declaration was a significant step forward for individual rights. The Declaration established the idea that the United States government would be based on the ideas of freedom, equality, and protecting people's rights. The story of American history ever since 1776 has, in many ways, been the story of how the promise of the Declaration of Independence has shaped our nation. 7. This is a replica of the printing press used to print copies of the Declaration of Independence. Riders carried copies to people in distant colonies. Identify how people share important documents today. Got it? 8. Summarize. In your own words, identify the main purpose of the Declaration of Independence. 9. You have just heard the Declaration of Independence read aloud in your town. Write a journal entry describing whether you agree with the ideas in it. 10. Describe why you think Independence Day is sometimes called America's birthday.